In this video, I am going to discuss an unreported reason why there is a housing shortage and a lack of inventory of homes to buy. There's been a lot of articles recently discussing the housing shortage and lack of home inventory. These news stories cover the complaints made by many buyers that they're having a very tough time finding a home to buy, and even if they do find a home that they do want to buy, they can't buy it because they're being overbid and bought by cash buyers. To understand this current housing shortage, I'd like to do a review of the events of 2020. I don't think anybody will disagree with me that 2020 will be the year remembered for the pandemic. The pandemic was the singular event that set many things in motion. If you recall, when the pandemic hit, there were stay-at-home orders throughout the United States. Suddenly, people who had the freedom to come and go as they pleased, travel however they wanted, work however they wanted, play however they wanted, all of that had to come to a halt. All non-essential businesses were ordered to shut down. People were ordered to stay at home and not go anywhere unless it was for an essential reason. So for the first couple of weeks, generally speaking, I think most people complied and they waited it out, hoping that things would get better within a few weeks. Unfortunately, that never happened. The stay-at-home orders and business shutdowns continued to persist. So wealthy and affluent people who lived in congested, high-density areas decided to start buying real estate out in the suburbs where it was less congested and where they had more freedom to move. They wanted relief from the stay-at-home orders. So many of these earlier purchases were being made in higher-end, more affluent neighborhoods and areas. They were the first properties to get bought up. So because the stay-at-home orders persisted and children had to start going to school online, there was this sudden demand for office space at home. Home office space became a premium when suddenly one or both parents had to start working at home, and simultaneously the kids were also going to school online. So for people who had a family of 4, for example, one home office was more than sufficient during normal times. But during a pandemic, suddenly there are 4 people who need private office area space to tend to their responsibilities. Some of those families decided that they wanted to move to a larger home, which exacerbated the demand for larger homes with more bedrooms and more living space. Keep in mind, there were many young adults who were living on their own in these urban areas that decided they were going to move home as well to consolidate expenses. All the while, the interest rates are very low in an effort to keep the economy going. It didn't take long for mainstream media to continue reporting on this ongoing phenomenon. And you know what happens when there is media coverage over a situation. Sometimes it drives the very thing that you're trying to prevent. There was a feeling that homes were becoming more scarce. People were buying real estate with mortgages at a very low interest rate. It caused people to start overbidding on homes. Essentially, the FOMO effect kicked in on top of everything else. For those of you who don't know what FOMO means, is fear of missing out. The FOMO effect. At the beginning of 2020, there were very few complaints about a housing shortage. But several months into 2020, suddenly there's a shortage, and once new homes are being bought, why aren't they putting up their homes for sale that they previously lived in? Because if these new home buyers were also selling the homes that they were moving from, my thinking is there wouldn't have been a shortage of inventory. It would tend to balance out overall. But now that we're in 2021, it's very clear to me that many of the buyers who bought new homes never sold the homes that they left. And the question is, why haven't they sold those homes if they've already bought another home? When I read the mainstream media, there's a general blaming that there are not enough homes being built to keep up with the demand. And to some degree, I do agree with that sentiment. However, in January, February, and March of 2020, there wasn't that much screaming about a shortage of homes, except in the normal areas such as San Francisco and other areas where they've always had a housing shortage. But by the fall of 2020, suddenly there was a housing shortage throughout the country. And I have a theory of why so many properties are not being put back into the marketplace for sale. I believe a lot of these affluent buyers didn't put up the homes they left for sale simply because they could afford to. I believe a lot of these affluent buyers didn't put up their previous homes for sale for a few reasons. Number one, it would be a second or third home for them. By having a second or third home, they have the flexibility to change residence as they feel necessary. Number two, another reason why they're not putting up their previous homes for sale is they're taking a wait and see attitude. In other words, the pandemic has created a lot of uncertainty in the economy and in people's lifestyles. Because they can afford to hold on to their previous homes, there is no rush for them to sell their previous homes. And even a fair amount of middle-class buyers are choosing to keep their previous homes as rentals. After all, another thing that's being reported, in addition to the shortage of homes, it's a huge appreciation of prices that occurred in 2020 and still occurring in 2021. By holding on to the previous home, they have an appreciating asset that is probably doing better than if they took the cash and put it into a savings account that only pays 0.5% interest. I think the biggest reason is the fact that selling property is a tax event. And what do I mean by a tax event? When you go buy a property, it doesn't cause a tax event because you're buying an asset. However, the IRS gets very involved in wanting to know whenever you sell a property. The day a property is sold and the proceeds are paid out, that becomes a taxable event. For many homeowners, in order to reap the benefits of a tax break, you have to have resided in the property for 2 years. And with real estate investors who hold property for cash flow and appreciation, if they go sell the property, they will likely get hit with a capital gains tax. This capital gains tax can be substantial when you add up the proceeds in addition to the depreciation benefits that were gained however many years they held on to it. Upon sale, when they go to sell, all those depreciation benefits that they took over the years become recaptured depreciation. That recaptured depreciation is subject to being taxed as well. I want to make it clear, I'm not a tax expert and I'm certainly not giving tax advice. However, what I do know is how investors think. Real estate investors are very wary of triggering tax events any more than they have to. And selling a property and taking the proceeds is very much a taxable event. And because selling and disposing of properties cause taxable events, most property owners and real estate investors take pause to assess their situation. Unless they're in a very tight or very motivated situation, they're not going to be so inclined to sell impulsively. So in many ways, this housing shortage and low inventory is a result of IRS tax reporting rules and policies. IRS rules and policies very much encourage investors to hold on to their assets, not to liquidate and sell them. As I make this recording, I very much believe that this is a temporary situation and it will eventually subside. And my position is buying opportunities will open up much more favorably when we get into 2022. Home buyers and real estate investors who can afford to be patient will likely be rewarded later. History has shown that with every downturn, there is an upturn. And with every upturn, there is a downturn. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. If you like this video, please hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. And while you're at it, take a look at these videos that I've recommended for you. Again, thank you for watching, and I will see you in my next video.